This scene with the Boyd and the ballerina was something that really shocked me the first time I ever saw it happening. A ballerina in FROMLAND was absolutely last on the list of things that I was expecting to ever get to see in this town. I never thought for a second I would see anything like this in FROMLAND. It just completely amazed me. And the questions, oh man, so many different questions immediately came into my mind as soon as I saw this. But something I've started thinking after I watched the entire season 2 of From was that this ballerina may have never been real in the first place. And you may be confused as to how and why I'd even be considering this as a possibility, but let me tell you right now, her not being real is a completely genuine possibility. And the reason why I'm saying this really goes back to this conversation that happens between Jade and Tabitha right at the end of season 2 in episode 9. In this scene, Jade asks about Civil War soldiers in Eloise's drawings, and Eloise was Victor's sister. And Tabitha tells Jade that Eloise was drawing them based on stories that she heard from their mother. And that's something that really confuses Jade because, of course, he's had visions of Civil War soldiers. So how is that? How is that even possible?
Look at this. See this one? These are Civil War soldiers. And why the fuck would a little girl draw pictures?
Wait, no. The pictures came from the stories his mother used to tell.
Well, all right, then why the fuck am I having visions of a story some dead woman told 40 years ago?
What was said in this scene is absolutely crazy because this scene makes it clear that Eloise didn't see these soldiers in her own visions the same way that Jade did, but that she heard about them from something her and Victor's mom told her. The reason why this is such a big deal is because it starts making you ask, was Eloise the one creating these visions? Are her drawings somehow coming to life? Or is it actually telling us that their mom or Victor himself are the ones responsible for creating the visions and therefore possibly the ones who created FROMLAND itself? And if the Civil War soldier was just a drawing that, for whatever reason, Jade was seeing coming to life or whatever, does that mean that the ballerina herself was something similar to that Civil War soldier, that being that she was never actually real to begin with, and it was just created in the same way that Jade's vision was created by something or someone or whatever? Maybe someone a long time ago drew ballerinas in the same way Eloise drew the soldier or something like that. For me, those possibilities are terrifying because it goes back to the idea of everything we've been seeing never being real, and this entire experience we've been on having been just a dream or a simulation or something like that, or some kind of dream, because you can easily use this line to say Eloise, Victor, or Miranda herself, which is their mother, was the one responsible for creating FROMLAND, and that it might literally be just a projection of some kind or a dream made by one of them. I really hope the writers do not go down this route because it's one of the laziest things they could ever do. It was just a dream is always such a cop-out. Whenever it happens, it's obvious that the writers never actually planned on solving any of the mysteries that they were setting up in a particular media. They've definitely played a lot with this idea in this show because we get repeated references to nightmares and dreams. Boyd says he's got a nightmare under his skin when he has the worms, and of course Martin brings up the what if it's just a dream dialogue, and even in the season 3 trailer they put in the tagline of the nightmare continues. The ballerina not being real is something that would seriously piss me off, and I'd be very angry if they brush off the Civil War soldier or the dude in the cellar with that same reasoning. Anything would be better than the writers saying, all those creepy sequences we showed you, oh yeah, none of that actually mattered because we never intended on explaining them anyways. It's so angering to even think of that possibility. But the ballerina being her own entity is an infinitely better explanation, and even the theory of the ballerina being some sort of conjuration made by the music box in order to get Boyd to infect Smiley with the worms, I think that's a good idea. There's also another possibility when it comes to this ballerina, and this is from when Sarah had a very interesting conversation with Kenny, where she told him that she's starting to consider that FROMLAND isn't just feeding on their pain, but also feeding on their nightmares, or I guess their fears as well. And the reason she's thinking that is because the cicadas was something Nathan, who was her brother, the same brother that she ended up taking out, but the cicadas was something Nathan used to be afraid of. And now, with the Nathan dead and with the cicadas all over the town, she started thinking that maybe the forest or the town or FROMLAND itself somehow brought Nathan's fears to life.
Boyd said it was like this place feeds on our pain. But what if it does more than that? Nathan was always terrified of cicadas. He thought they were monsters. What if the people who die here, what if their fears become part of the forest? What if that really is Nathan's nightmare out there?
This is something a lot of people watching this show have been saying that the townspeople have the ability to do, that being bringing things to life, and that the monsters are just a representation of collective human fears, like being afraid of the dark, looking human but actually being demons wanting to tear you apart, stuff like that. It makes sense because, vampires, the mythology of vampires, for example, it obviously comes from that same primal fear of the dark, of people not being who they really are, actually wanting to kill you, wanting to do horrible things to you. It's a primal fear, probably coded into the genetics of humanity. And it's of course a very popular theory about Fromville that they have this ability to bring these things to life in this town and in this land that they're in. And in that same way that FROMLAND would have brought the cicadas to life, then that being Nathan's nightmare, then it could be that the ballerina was more of the same, and somebody died in FROMLAND who had a fear of ballerinas, and possibly the music box as well. They probably go together. There's a ballerina on the music box, so it just makes sense. But this theory has a lot of holes in it. Like, thinking about how many people died since the beginning of the show, there should be way more monsters getting added into FROMLAND than just the cicadas, unless there's other requirements that need to be fulfilled before your fears can get turned into a new monster in FROMLAND, and it doesn't just automatically apply to anyone who dies. And you also have people who have phobias about heights. For example, how would that be represented in a monster? That's incredibly difficult, and I can't see a way where that could even be possible, at least not in a show like this. It's too complicated, and personally, I wouldn't go that route if I was writing this show. You're better off not opening that hole to begin with, because, oh man, there's so many fears that you're just not gonna be able to fill it. There's a lot of different possibilities about the ballerina and where she could have come from and what she actually represents, from being made by the music box itself, being created somehow from somebody like Eloise or Victor's drawings, and of course the ballerina and maybe the music box as well might have been created by FROMLAND using the fear of somebody who died in this place. But of course, the entire thing could just be a dream, a simulation, a coma, and the writers just never had any desire to give any sort of satisfying explanation. Of course, if they end up destroying the ending by doing that, I'll definitely be here ready and willing to call them out for their garbage writing. I really hope it's not gonna come to that, but it's good to be prepared anyways.